My different classes. All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ushanka Show Live. I realize it's been a while since we had a live show, so I decided we maybe go ahead and do one. It's summer, everyone is busy with their summer projects, so channel doesn't grow really fast. I had about maybe 400 subscribers every month right now, so usually I do lives every time we hit another 1,000 subscribers. And it will be a while, probably in September we'll see 103,000. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see if we have any people join. Here we go. So we have some people showing up. I was afraid that maybe by mistake I didn't go public, just private. That happens. So anyways, whoever joined, welcome. And we're going to talk about, as always, questions about life in the Soviet Union. And we'll talk about current events in Ukraine and Russia, what's going on with war. I'm right now working on my next video about cars in the Soviet Union. Okay, we got 8 people, so please verify that the sound is okay. And we got question. Have you ever visited the Kursk region? No, not really. It's kind of northern part. If you look at Ukraine, but not northern enough. I was close to Bryansk region. If you're familiar with the maps, you got Kursk region, then Bryansk region, then Belarus starts. So the village I spend every summer in northern Ukraine, it's literally about 20 kilometers from the border where 3 countries come together. There's actually a monument called Three Sisters. And so I was in Bryansk region just there. I have never had a reason to travel to Russia. When I was in the village, I visited Lipetsk, but that's when I took a train and maybe went through Bryansk and north to Russia in 95, in the winter 95 or 96, and went to Lipetsk to visit a guy that I used to work with in the summer camp here in the United States. If you read my books, American Diaries 1995, this is 96. This is 95, and actually almost done with 97. I'm in the last kind of days of my story from 1997. And I assume the sound is okay since no one is complaining. So thank you for joining. We've got already 24 people. I'm apologize, kind of surprise live. I wasn't planning, but my wife out of town. I'm by myself at home. So I said, well, might as well. I done mowing grass and maybe we'll do a little live chat for about an hour or so about current events. Okay, sound is good. Great. What other republic has fascinated you the most? Unfortunately, when I lived in the Soviet Union, I was a teenager. I didn't care about traveling. It comes later, unfortunately, in life. My parents weren't travelers and we really couldn't afford to travel a lot. So I went to Leningrad in 1986, but not because I wanted to. It's because Chernobyl blew up, and that was the only place that we knew people. My classmate Valera, who was Russian, his parents were father was Soviet Army officer, so that's how they came to Kiev. And so the grandmother on the father's side lived in Sertolova, which is close to Leningrad. So when we realized how bad situation was with radiation and so in Kiev, that's when they made agreement, and I spent the month June in Sertolova near Leningrad. So that's the only time when I stayed in Russia for extended period of time. And I traveled once to Azerbaijan. We spent a week in Baku. That happened in 1987 in the 9th grade. And I traveled also one time to Riga, Latvia in the summer of 1989. I think we were there about for a week. It was a different experience. I couldn't say anything fascinated me. Azerbaijan was different, but then was scary because the local guys were so aggressive towards our girls. Azerbaijanis were like girls were scared, like they were afraid that they'll get raped pretty much because they have this interesting, there's a cultural thing, they Muslim, so they are really strict about their girls. Like they should not mess with boys, stay virgins till they get married. They have this interesting tradition that on the first night of the marriage, they have sheets. See if I can get more comfortable. Um, so they, display the sheets with the blood to prove that the girl was a virgin. But then they treat like Russian or Ukrainian girls, white girls, like whores. For them, like, yeah, we can sleep with white girls, but then we marry Azerbaijani virgin. So that was kind of an issue. I like Latvia a lot. Latvia was kind of, more Western European kind of capital. So that was different experience. I met people who barely could speak Russian. That was pretty weird. The cleaning lady in that school. So that was exchange program. The class from Riga went to Kiev and stayed in our school, and we stayed in their school. So we slept in the gym on the cots. And a local cleaning lady, she barely could speak Russian. I remember that was quite a shock for me to meet someone who can barely speak Russian. By that time, of course, Ukraine was totally Russified. So to find somebody who doesn't speak Russian in Ukraine was nearly impossible. The people asking how's my week. I'm doing fine. Today I'm had a day off, but we have a finally nice weather here in Michigan. Humidity dropped. It's actually weather right now here in Michigan, just like I remember back in my childhood in northern Ukraine. No humidity at night. Temperature drops. Like northern Michigan has a similar weather, so it's really nice. Finally, we can be outside doing stuff. So I spent a lot of time doing a push mower. I walked about 2 miles pushing a lawnmower. So let's see, we got other comments here. Well, we got even a viewer from Soviet Algeria. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, we had quite a few countries that were aligned with Soviet Union, and we send a lot of military help. One of my other friend of mine, another Russian guy whose dad was a Soviet Army officer, he was a military advisor in one of the countries in Africa. He didn't specify which one. I just remember that there were stories that they had to wrap themselves in a wet sheets so they can sleep through the night because it was too hot. So, see what else. So yeah, unfortunately today when I was mowing grass, I missed a phone call from Kiev. My mother right now in Kiev, but she's planning to go back to her village for a month. So we're trying to get together. But the girl, the lady, the neighbor who lives in the apartment next door to my mom's, we use Telegram for the phone calls. She was at work, and when she was calling me, I had a phone in my pocket and I was mowing with my push mower. So I didn't hear the phone ringing. Unfortunately, I missed the call. So I think tomorrow, on Monday, my mom will be heading out to her back to her village. And my brother got drafted about a month ago. So he right now he was in a boot camp. Now he's somewhere in the western Ukraine, going through training. So of course we're all worried for him. I'm proud of him, but at the same time, of course, I'm extremely scared for him. So I don't know. It's kind of bizarre to see my brother wearing a military uniform. So that's kind of a pretty tense situation. He said he looks like he will be in a communication. He'll be in the border guards, пограничники and прикордонники по-украински, пограничники по-русски, and he will be dealing with communications. So we'll see how that goes. So yeah, now the war knocked on our door. I would never imagine. I don't know if you remember my live way back when we were talking right before the war began in February of 2022, and I went live and I told you all the reasons why Russians wouldn't attack Ukraine, and I was totally wrong, except all the reasons I provided were majorly affected Russian attack because they were stuck on the roads. They couldn't go anywhere else because everywhere else was mud. and Ukrainian drones and artillery were decimating columns of the columns. And then finally, Russians realized that they'll be all destroyed, and they pulled back in the northern Ukraine. So just like I predicted, you don't start the war assault in the winter, you start it in the summer. That's why Hitler attacked Soviet Union in June. That's why D-Day happened, I believe, also in June. You need the longest days, the shortest nights, warm weather, and dry weather, so troops can move easily, stay easily outdoors over night. So yeah, what I don't know what I said. I give up trying to understand the Putin's reasons for this war. It's totally senseless. They underestimated Ukrainians, overestimated themselves, and now the latest development. Ukrainian troops are marching through Kursk region. I don't understand why. I'm excited for their success. It's definitely going to help Ukraine uh, because Russia had to pull their troops from other areas. So yeah, but I don't understand what's going on. But uh, glory to Ukraine, and I hope something will break in Kremlin, and maybe we'll find out that this time Putin will fall out the window by accident, and maybe they will start pulling the troops out and stopping this war. Okay, let's see. Hey, Sergey, cheers from Southeast Michigan. Okay, I'm Southwest, and you're Southeast. Okay, so you're by Detroit. Thanks for telling interesting stories about life in the Soviet Union. You're welcome. I'm learning myself a lot too. There's a lot of things that I just knew but never tried to analyze. So your questions help me greatly too, because I'm started kind of thinking about many items. And like I said, right now I'm working again on the public transportation. This is actually, I think I showed you. So this is my kind of notes when I make videos. Basically, start recording audio on my phone, short audio clips, and I write what I said, and it could be mixed with Russian and English words. And then I, write how many seconds is the speech. Then I decide which pictures will go. So this is Mягкий Автобус. That's the plush bus story that recently I made. And now I'm going to make a story about the hard bus in more details, because I posted a picture on my favorite Reddit subreddit, USSR, about a bus that was called the Soul Killer, Dushagupka, and a lot of people got butthurt there. So anyway, so I'm working on that right now. That's my next story, is about more about buses. And then, of course, if you read my book, 1995, I took a Greyhound bus from New York, well, from Benton Harbor, Michigan. If you're familiar with Michigan, so I live right here. I was there. And in order to go to New York, I had to, they sent me to Chicago. And then back from Chicago, I went to New York. So I spent good, we left about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was at 9 o'clock in the morning in New York. So I had twice I did that, travel by Greyhound bus. So I have a good experience traveling by the Greyhound in America, so I can compare my experience traveling in Soviet Union. So that's in the book, but I'll read that part. There'll be my third installment on the public transportation. So, and if you just joined, don't forget to like this live. Maybe it will help YouTube to notice. Right now, views are really flat, except one video, my old video about smoking. Right now, smoking, it took off. People subscribe, comment just from that one video, and it's a pretty old one. My brother was born in 1986, the same year Chernobyl blew up. So he is approaching 40, so he's 38 years old. So yeah, it's they drafting more people. So yeah, we weren't expecting him to get drafted, because way back when they didn't need that many people go to military service in Ukraine. For many years, Ukrainian army was shrinking, and of course, normal country cannot have, giant army like Soviet Union used to have. It's one of the reasons Soviet Union eventually collapsed. Just military expenses were just ridiculous. You can't spend 20% of your GDP and having no, I don't know how many millions army full time all the time, something was gonna break. So Ukraine was shrinking its army, and my brother had some health issues, so he was basically kind of similar to my situation back then. In my paperwork was written «Не годен к в мирное время, годен к нестроевой военной». So I was unfit in peaceful times because of my eyesight, and I was only good for non-military positions during the war. So there'll be real war in Soviet Union, I'll get drafted, doing digging trenches, just doing non-military, like non-combatant, because I'm pretty much have a really bad eyesight. My brother has issue with his back, I believe. There was some other health issues. So yeah, he had so-called yellow ticket, so he didn't get drafted back in when he turned 18. But now he went through medical review again, and they put him in the communications. Let's see what else we got here. So yeah, and I said, if you follow my channel, I'm not, hardcore nationalist Ukrainian. I left Ukraine because I was disappointed with opportunities there, and I liked America better. But and whatever Ukrainians decided to do, I'll go with it. When they give up Crimea without fight, I wasn't screaming that it's a treason, that we need to fight to take Crimea back. I like, well, if Ukrainian people and government decided it's not worth to die for that peninsula, I was cool with that. But now I'm beginning to realize that Russia will never stop. It's that kind that, just like dealing with Gopnik, with those criminals, the moment you give Gopnik a cigarette, you lost your watch. The moment Ukraine give up Crimea without fight, it told Putin he can take the rest of Ukraine. It's pretty much that mentality. They only understand the force. You gotta punch them in the nose and punch as hard as you can. Otherwise, they just don't understand. They see any, like back in the day, Obama, tried to reset relations with Russia. That I remember that stillness that Clinton brought the reset button, blah blah blah, and Putin like, oh, they're weak now, and I can do my agenda. I can start restoring the great Russia, not Soviet Union, but great Russia. So they don't understand. It's just the mentality that's hundreds of years of constant wars. Russia became Russia from tiny Muscovy. There was region was Muscovian Muscovites, right? And like cancer, they were expanding for years, hundreds of years, occupying neighbors, taking over. They spent almost 100 years occupying a Caucasian region. They wasted 1 million of their own soldiers in that 100-year war that no one knows about, and they killed about 10 million locals. So it's just, yeah, this is pretty much uh, they could survive only by constantly expanding and occupying neighbors. So now it's Putin back in that, if empire doesn't expand, it starts shrinking. So that was, I guess, his logic why he had decided to attack Ukraine. But of course, every stick has two ends. So now he got whacked in the head by another side of the stick. All right, so please don't forget to like this stream if you do like it. So there's a comment about World War III. Yeah, I'm 100% positive that in 50 years from now, historians will be saying that the World War III began when, on the February 24th, 2022, when Russia attacked Ukraine. Because when Hitler attacked Poland on September 1st, 1939, no one said, oh, we got World War II, right? It was just a German-Polish war, and it's only later historians, I don't know who made that decision to put the timeline there, not when Japan was started occupying China, or when they decided it's okay to give up to give Hitler Sudeten region back. But if you look at the timeline, it's so scary similar. Germany had Olympics in Berlin. Russia had Olympics in Sochi in 2014. Germany annexed Austria without fight, and then they annexed first Sudet and then the rest of Czechoslovakia without fight in the West. Just, let's not have war. We don't need this war. And Hitler just went then for Poland. Similar to Putin, you see the exactly same pattern. He attacked Georgia back in 2008, nothing happened. He occupied Crimea, nothing happened. So might as well just start occupying the entire Ukraine. So this is really scary, but this is how it goes. The comment that people like my boss video. Thank you so much. Could you tell us more about your last name as a nickname? It's my Sputnikov. It's my pen name, of course. It's basically I wanted something that sounds Soviet with American flavor, since the whole topic of the Soviet Union, my channel. Sputnik, I don't think anything can be more Soviet than Sputnik. And just like Smirnov, vodka, right? It's a Russian vodka in America, so Sputnikov, it's the Soviet in America. Maybe I wonder one day maybe I'll come up with Sputnikov vodka, Gorilka. That'll be Sputnikov Gorilka though. That'll be actually pretty cool. I need to think about it. If this channel will reach 1 million subscribers, which probably won't, that'll be kind of neat to have a Sputnikov vodka. So we got another question. Was it allowed for people to move where they wanted? For example, moving from Siberia to Moscow for better living? It's a great question. I have videos on this topic. It's like yes and no. For like traveling, it was okay. You could travel, you didn't need any permission. So if you wanted to go for your summer vacation to Crimea, was the most popular destination, sure. Moving was a challenge for two reasons. First of all, everywhere you go, you had to ask permission from the local government to settle there. This is so-called propiska. So in your passport, every Soviet citizen had a passport. Not like Americans, we only have passport to travel abroad. We had inner passport, and then there was another passport that you travel to other countries. And in your passport, there's a page for your propiska. So that's where you're assigned to. So my parents, when they moved in apartment, they registered there, and then when we got a different apartment, we moved there, but we were within Kiev. So if you're in Siberia, you need to move to Moscow, you need to get permission to move to Moscow, basically. And of course, you couldn't buy apartments weren't for sale. And if you have, for example, if you live in some city in Siberia, say Krasnoyarsk or whatever, you have apartment there, you couldn't sell it and buy it in Moscow. The only way you can do is a trade. But good luck to find someone who wants to move from Moscow to Krasnoyarsk. So it was created a lot of headaches. So people were moving around, but it was extremely challenging. One of my classmates, his mother was originally from Belarus, Belarusia at that time, Belarus. When she got divorced, she decided she wanted to move back to Belarus. So she had an apartment in Kiev, two-room apartment. And the way she moved, she published the ad in the Minsk newspaper. And she basically was offering a trade. That's how you do exchange. I have a two-room apartment in Kiev. I'm looking for two-room apartment in Minsk. So Minsk and Kiev kind of, capital of republics. So you could do like for like, two-room for two-room. And I asked my friend, Andrei, who also lives in the United States now, like, hey, how did it work? Did she have to offer extra money? She said, no. So when a city is kind of same level, Kiev was bigger, but so she had no issues to find someone who needed to move to Kiev. So they did the swap. and that way you could get Propiska in Minsk. Like, look, I got apartment in Minsk, and now I get Propiska. But if you don't have housing, you couldn't just move to Moscow. You first had to find place somewhere you can work and who provides housing, like dormitories. And if you do that way, you can get a temporary, I think maybe 1 year to 2 year temporary Propiska registration. And then it's up to you if you manage to find somehow a way to get an apartment. You know, there was many ways, but you couldn't buy it. So it was extreme challenge. So first of all, uh, good luck in finding. Maybe you have a nice 3-room apartment in Krasnoyarsk. And if you want to go to Moscow, there's possibility you have to trade 3-room apartment in Krasnoyarsk for 1 room, or even maybe a room in a communal apartment in Moscow. Maybe you have to offer cash. And there was actually people, I'm planning to make videos about it. There were people, like they call them maklers. So there were people who were helping other people to find apartments, and quite often there would be like daisy chain. So you need Krasnoyarsk to Moscow, but you can't find people in Moscow. But somebody wants to move to Krasnoyarsk from Almaty, capital of Kazakhstan, and someone wants to move to Almaty from Kiev, and someone wants to move from Moscow to Kiev. So those people will find and make this daisy chain of swaps. So people from Moscow move to Kiev, people from Kiev move to Almaty, people from Almaty move to Krasnoyarsk, and you move to Moscow that way. It's a really good topic to discuss. My family never moved out of Kiev, so we didn't have that experience. But yeah, there were people, and I actually had movies and comedy on that topic, that how people had to go. So housing was cheap in the Soviet Union, rent. And I found the document finally. I'm planning to make another video. If you ever argue with anybody, Tanky, about Soviet free housing, wasn't free, and we were all renting. I found the document. I wasn't like really looking, but I stumbled upon from 1962. That's like official document. It's the rules about apartments, and it says there it's the between owners of apartment, like a local Soviet, so local city council, and the renters, tenants. So people who lived in Soviet Union, they were tenants. They didn't own those apartments. They own renting really cheap. Uh, I will be talking about price too. I mean, cheap, relatively speaking. Yeah, if you pay 10% of your income, uh, but we were at such a low pay that if there'll be real market price, no one will be able to afford housing in the Soviet Union. For example, well, most people, like my parents, once again, if you follow my channel, there is a video. We had to wait 20 years. So when we finally managed to get a little tiny apartment on our own, we moved out of the dorms where we shared 1 room with another family for 5 years. Fortunately, I was small, so I don't remember much. So picture you share a small room, slightly bigger than I'm here. So room maybe, I don't know, 12 by 15 feet. 2 families live there. 6 people, total strangers, table in the middle, beds on one side, bed on the opposite side. My crib was there. And we did that for 5 years. So when we finally, my mom managed to get an apartment, and it was tiny apartment, but it was our own, well, rent. That was like, oh my gosh. And then my dad, he worked at Antonov Aircraft Factory in Kiev, and they had 20-year waiting list. So my family, since the apartment was small and was 3 of us, the limit was you need to have at least, I think, 7 square meters was like, if you have less than 9 square meters, you are qualified to get bigger apartment, but it's not like they're gonna give you. You have to wait, and because if it's cheap housing, anything cheap creates a lot of demand. So at his place of work, they made aircrafts, but they didn't build apartment buildings for their workers. So my dad, his waiting list was 20 years. So I was, let's see, like about 5 years old when we moved. So I would be 25 when my parents would finally move from the tiny apartment to two-room apartment. And of course, if you do math, 1980, that's what we got the cooperative apartment. Our waiting list would expire after Soviet Union expired, so we would never move. So this is the smartest thing my parents ever did. Instead of waiting Soviet style for 20 years to get a free apartment, we went a cooperative apartment, and that was 15,000 rubles. We got Soviet mortgage. Uh, Monthly payment was 60 rubles a month for next 15 years, I believe. So it was 50% of my mom's salary. So now we're talking pretty much, ugly face of capitalism in the Soviet Union. Now it's 50% of your salary goes towards your housing expense just to pay off mortgage, and then there's electric bill, a natural gas bill, hot water bill. Okay, so I was chatting a lot. I apologize. Let me go back to your questions. Could you listen to radio from other countries? Yes, it was a challenge. I have a video on that topic called Enemy Voices, Soviet Union. We had shortwave radios for sale, but they were jamming them really heavily. So I will post the video right now. And that was one of my memories of my childhood. It's on Sunday. Let's see. My dad liked to listen to those guys in the morning, Sunday morning. On Saturday, I had to go to school, so I couldn't do it. So I'll go to his room, and he will be on the couch laying. He slept on the couch, and he will have his big Geographic radio, and he will be listening Voice of America, Free Europe, BBC, and there'll be constantly this noise coming up. So you have to adjust the tuning to move away a little bit. And I discovered one of my subscribers said that his father used to work on BBC, and they were monitoring jamming, and they were moving frequency slightly to avoid jamming. So there was this cat and mouse game. But that was great. That was the kind of experience. And I remember listening to some stories once talk about a bunch of Soviet tourists. They get off in some port. They were on a cruise, and like 15 people asked for political assignment. And I was like, they never said that in our newspapers. So yeah, that was a lot of that. Yep. So we talk about name. Talk about moving around. So there is a comment. Looks like someone, Anna Retail, looks like she used to live in the Soviet Union. There was nothing like riding the bus, the firm bus, so the one that had firm seats on the dirt road. There was our ride to the local collective farm to pick potatoes every year in high school. Yeah, that's another good saving crops every fall. I did that a couple of times when I was in school. Then I did it also for my mother. So her place of work, Research Institute Saturn, they had a collective farm in the Kiev region area, which they were like not a supervisor, but they were assigned. That collective farm was assigned to them. So every fall, they were supposed to send people, workers, engineers, to go and handpicked tomatoes, handpicked beets, cucumbers, cabbages. So there was like actually a list. They go in each department at my mom's place of work, and I'm like, okay, you guys went last weekend. It's on the weekends, and you go on Sunday. And it's unpaid because we're supposed to help. So I felt bad for my mom. I was a teenager, full of energy. So I volunteered. So they didn't care who goes as long as like your. So I went instead of my mom a couple of times, and one time I've actually somehow talked to my friend, my classmate Alex, to go with me, and I think I said, hey, they let us take home, tomatoes as a award. They don't pay you. So he's like, yeah, we can use some tomatoes. He went with me, and we picked a bunch of tomatoes. And we didn't pick a lot for ourselves, but there was one guy, he barely picked any for collective farm, but he was picking the best, biggest tomatoes for himself. And then we were loading up back, going back home on the bus. And the local collective time guy, collective time, collective farmer, he's like, dude, you can't take that many. So he basically told him, you have to keep, you only keep, so much. This you have to leave behind. And so there was like 2 crates of this perfect, beautiful big tomatoes. And then guy looked at us, look at, we have like a little bag with maybe 5 tomatoes each. He's like, help yourself. I picked the best ones. So we each brought a big crate of tomatoes home. Parents were so happy, and we didn't have to waste time, going picking them. So that was pretty cool. But I just want to mention in Ukraine, we had a better situation with roads. Like a lot of Russia, they have basically railroads and dirt roads. There's hardly any paved roads. I mean, I think it improved after end of the Soviet Union. Ukraine was way better, so you could get to my village on the asphalt roads. They're not really good quality, but still, it's a hard surface. So I didn't ride the bus on the dirt roads much. You could get all the way to Zhovy on the asphalt. Okay, talk about radio stations. Comment. I didn't know the smoking video to be so popular. There's a lot of people who smoke, and it's like a big thing, the cultural. I work, of course, with Americans, and I was shocked to discover I have quite a few coworkers who don't smoke, but they smoke cigars. So they'll be hanging out and, let's go smoke cigars, but they don't smoke daily. I find it's kind of weird experience. I don't smoke, but it's funny if I catch a whiff of smoke, it reminds me of my dad. I actually got like almost teared up one day at work. We were outside doing something. One of my coworkers is a smoker, like hardcore, have to smoke. He wakes up in the middle of the night to take a smoke break. So he kind of stood aside, started smoking, and the wind kind of blew and I smell. And I was like, oh, my dad, because my father passed away about a year ago. So I got kind of nostalgic. I don't like smell of the cigarettes coming out of people's mouths. It's my bad experience from college because a lot of my guys in my college smoke. So on the breaks between classes, they'll go outside for a smoke. Then they come back and they talk to you, face to face, and that smell is just disgusting. And I tried to date a very pretty girl in Ukraine one time. She was beautiful, looked like a model. I think I talk about her in my book, 1996, and I couldn't do it. It's just like I just like kiss an ashtray. I tried. I was like, man, she's gorgeous. Dating, supermodel looking girl, fantastic, but couldn't do it. Okay, let's see. And yeah, I can tell you right now. See what's going on with smoking. That video, analytics. Right now, it has 223,000 views, and it added to my channel 2.5 thousand subscribers. So from one video, it brought me 2,500 subscribers. Pretty crazy, right? So, and now it has about 1,000 views in the last 48 hours. So it took off about a month ago. Yep, it started going down again, but the last 28 days, 17,000 views and additional 171 subscriber. So it's pretty cool for the guy who is not a smoker. I even didn't collect empty cigarette packs because it was a big hobby is to collect cigarette packs. I never done it either. And actually, there was a recent comment like, for a guy who doesn't smoke, he knows a lot about cigarette brands. It's like my dad smoked, my friend smoked, and I just being a nerd is like, oh, that's a cool pack. I don't collect. Actually, I do. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. All right. Don't ask me why. For some reason, I thought this pack it looks so cool. I grab a magazine in the local. I go to libraries. I'm an old timer, so I like to go to library. I I love American libraries, and I pay taxes to support it, of course, for my property tax. And they were advertising this Winston, and I thought they looked so cool, so I bought a pack. It was like $7. It's like how people can afford this? $7? It's crazy. But yeah, I thought it was so neat. So anyway, I don't know why, but I was emotional buy. I become American in some regards. I do emotional buys, which makes no sense. One of those. I came home and my wife saw me. Was like, "You bought cigarettes?" I was like, "Yeah, I don't know. It's just I have to. I had to buy it for some reason. I'll keep it as a collection items. Maybe in 20 years, it will. I can retire selling it on eBay." Okay. Okay. The question: how did the government justify invasion of Afghanistan in 1979? Uh, I was, of course, way too young, but it lasted so long, so I remember kind of the late stage. It was never called a war, of course, just like Putin. It's called special military operation. The main theme was that we were performing our international duty, and the soldiers who fought in Afghanistan, we call Afghanistan, I would say Afghanistan. They were called воины internationalisты, so international warriors or international soldiers. So they went to pay their duties to Afghan people because you know we had to help them, and for a lot of in the beginning, of course, it's Brezhnev time, Andropov time. There was a lot of mass media wasn't doing any good information from Afghanistan. So if you see news, oh, our army planting trees, or we build power lines to this distant village in the mountains. I think they call them Kishlak, if I remember correctly. So look, we brought electricity to our poor villagers. So there was no information about actual fighting or uh, soldiers dying. And of course, during Perestroika time, during Gorbachev and glasnost, kind of freedom of speech became going. That's when we started learning how ugly it was there. And of course, you went downhill. But original topic was, the excuse was, it's our international duty to help neighboring country. And there was a rumors going on that it was a race between Soviet Union and America, that the United States wanted to put their nuclear missiles in Afghanistan right on the border with Soviet Union, and that like Soviet Union beat America by like 3 hours. If we didn't drop our airborne troops in Afghanistan, there'll be American troops entering Afghanistan. That's, I remember, was kind of like this rumor. So that was a justification. Hey, John Wayne Cheeseburger is live. Yes, I am. I apologize that it was kind of like last minute, but we got 100 people join us, so it's great for the summer time. Is pretty good. And we have actually people from Algeria, a few from some unusual country. I'm still about 50% United States is my number one viewership, then Canada, then UK, and then all over the place. So let's see. So, question: speaking of military expenditures, expenses, how do you think the USSR would have turned out if they didn't feel the need to spend so much on military? Well, you need to understand one basic thing. Soviet Union wanted communism to be all over the world. That was the original idea when Lenin took power in Russia and made it Soviet Russia. They wanted world revolution and the triumph of communism in the whole world. It's not just Trotsky. Now it's kind of this propaganda. It's like, oh, it was just Trotsky idea. That was day one. Marx and Engels, in their theory about Marxism and socialism, same thing. They claimed that so you cannot survive having socialism as just one country. They will be overpowered by the capitalist world. So you need to spread, and so you spread the revolution all over the world. Stalin tried that. Um, I strongly believe he was about to attack Germany in summer of 1941, and Hitler beat Stalin by literally 2 weeks. So, and then of course, Khrushchev changed direction a little bit. So instead of direct military, like pretty much planning another war, he decided, okay, we're going to prove the world that we are better system than capitalism. And that's why we had the space race, all kind of races. The whole Khrushchev era, Nikita Khrushchev, it was about догнать и перегнать Америку. So catch up with America and beat her economically, and basically show the rest of the world, like Africa, South America, the socialism is so much better. So there was this peaceful competition while we're building more nuclear missiles. And then Brezhnev, that's basically the talk was the, world peace. But if you look how many tanks they had in Eastern Germany, so it was just this original setup. The Soviet Union was built to have a big war. And that was the large weakness. The Soviet Union was like a bodybuilder that completely ignored its legs, like agriculture, um, so-called легкая industry, light industry, so like consumer industries. They were making weapons, just tons, because they one day the plan was to we're going to have a big war against the United States and the West, and because we need to have a socialism everywhere, all over the. I looked it up. So there was in Kharkiv, so Eastern Ukraine, there was a tank factory. It wasn't called tank factory. It was actually like a train factory. First original a steam train factory. In 1991, like 1990, 91, they still manufactured 900 tanks every month. 900 tanks just in Kharkiv. And then there's another tank factory in Ural, in Chelyabinsk. Also, it's called train building factory. So it just the whole, there was giant biceps, and they couldn't feed their own people. So they were doomed just because of that whole setup. And they may lasted longer if they didn't spend so much money on military. But when you build the whole system that way, if you try to cut expenses on military, then it'll be a lot of people without work, because it's pretty much everyone was doing something for military. It's crazy. Like the place my mother worked, our main product was components for the satellite communication and other type of radio relay communication for military. And then they did side projects for like space communication. I believe the first Soviet moon rover, Lunokhod, had a little amplifier part from the NII Saturn. So it's, they had to do it. It's just how the original was set up. And look at China. Why do they try to build their military bigger and bigger? Hey, they're already a factory of the world. The entire world depends on them to manufacture goods. But for some reason, they are trying to build their military bigger and bigger. It just, I don't think America plans to occupy China. They have nuclear weapons. They shouldn't worry about anything. They have billions of people. I don't know who would attack China, but they are spending so much money on military. But they can't afford it because, their economy is in way better shape than Soviet economy, although they have some problems too. All right, so we got nice steady about 100 viewers, so thank you so much. Don't forget, see if we can get 100 likes. That'll be great. Was there influx of North Vietnamese immigrants during and after the war of Vietnam? No, I don't think so. We didn't have a direct border with Vietnam. I don't think so. And we won, right? So there was no reason for Northern Vietnamese to move to Soviet Union. We had a big influx of Vietnamese students after the war was over. They started accepting a lot of Vietnamese students. So that was the only way we got Vietnamese, and that's kind of interesting story. So they figure out quickly they can make good money bringing goods from Vietnam and sell it in Soviet Union. And flip flops, right? In America, they call them thongs. That's kind of funny. In Russian language, flip flop, it's called Vietnamki, Vietnamese shoes, because they introduced them to the Soviet people. So seeing them people wearing flip flops, Vietnamese people, that shoe became Vietnamka. So Vietnamese shoe. That's what I know. Impact of that war in the Soviet Union. We got introduced to the flip flops. But I don't know anyone who brought Vietnamese wife. There's probably some children in Vietnam left that had the Russian genes, but I'm not aware of anybody. I mean, there was a small amount of Russian advisors and pilots there, not like huge amount like American soldiers. Okay. We have inner passports too. Now it's the real ID. Well, this actually, I don't have it somewhere. I put it away. It's like real, like a passport, American passport when we travel abroad with propiska where you're signed to, with your marital status. That was a convenient way actually for the girls. If you guys start kind of hitting on you or you consider dating a guy, or maybe he's really persistent about getting laid, they will ask for your passport because like if you're serious, I want to verify that you're not married. You know, it's easy to remove your wedding band, right? And by the way, in Soviet Russia, you wear wedding band on a different hand. So in America, you wear it on the left, I think, right? Because of my work, I have a lot of spinning equipment. I don't wear a wedding band, but I think Americans wear on the left, right? In Soviet Union and Russia, Ukraine, wedding band goes on the right hand, and divorced people were on the left. So that was a way of girls. They're just like, yeah, you really want me? Show me your passport. I want to verify that you're a single guy. Because if when you're married, you give your passport and they put the stamp, your military record is there. So it's way more than just the ID. The whole story, they can see where you lived because propiska stamps. Then they, so often they change your pictures. So there'll be a picture when you're 16, next page picture when you're 25, next page picture when you're 45. It was a hardcore document. It's like your life book in one document. So yeah, like since we didn't have not many people had cars, driver's license was just for driving. You don't show your driver's license for other things. Hey, we got Romanian here. Hello. Ați păcorești România ora exactă? There's a question. When America and Britain started supplying Russia during World War II, did the government reverse engineer the Western technology and redevelop their weapons industry? Well, not during the war. I don't think they had time. Well, redesigning was way before World War II. Famous Soviet T-34 tank, it's American design. American engineer Christie designed tank that America wasn't interested in, the United States government, and the Soviet Union purchased technology, that whole podveska, I don't know the English word, the whole wheel system, all that tracks and everything. That's a Christie design. So BT-7, that's pretty much American tank that Americans refused. We imported the two tanks as a track under track as a tractors because back then was banned to sell military equipment to Soviet Union. So pretty much the whole tank industry was based on American design because T-34 is pretty much was development from BT-7. And of course, late after the World War II, the biggest copies were, of course, American Studebaker trucks. They were inspiration for the Soviet design. So I don't remember ZIS or ZIL. So Soviet military trucks, if you look at them, they look suspiciously similar to Studebakers. Then, of course, we also got a lot of military jeeps. So they were inspiration for our military jeeps. And I think the biggest one was, of course, American bomber. Cannot tell you. I'm not a aircraft guy, but the Soviets, when you guys started bombing Japan, and American bombers. So that's not the Stratofortress. It's not those big ones that dropped the nuclear bomb on Japan. The ones before, so that will be Flying Fortress, maybe. Uh, some of them crash landed in Soviet Union. Stalin refused to return the planes. Some of them actually not crash landed, like landed on the Soviet Far East, and we made the copies. I think it was Tu-2, maybe. It was basically a carbon copy of American bomber, one for one. Stalin didn't want any. He's like, nope, just make exactly the same copy. Later, they returned pilots quietly through Iran. They made them like they escaped because since Soviet Union and Japan had a peaceful treaty at that time, in order not to piss off Japan, whatever, they couldn't just give American pilots back to United States, so they were kind of keeping them for a while, and then under pressure from American government, they let them escape from through Iran. But they copied that bomber one for one. And here's an awesome Soviet era propaganda. I watched it was actually modern days like Russian video, and they said the statement was amazing. They said the Americans didn't think that we were capable of uh, reproducing their plane, like because they thought our technology is so behind, but we were made the copy, no problem. So like they actually couldn't hide the fact why the Soviet bomber looks exactly the same as American bomber. So we need to still come up with some good patriotic thing. So like they didn't think we could make a copy, and we did. Look how good we are. Oh my goodness. Anyway, hey, can we get to 100 likes? We got 72. So if you just join me, please like it. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Oop, it just jumped. I apologize. Talk about Vietnamese. Okay, we're back here. Sorry, sometimes the comments jump and I'm like lost here. And by the way, I never knew that in America they manufactured mostly Nagant rifles for Russian government. That's like World War One era, and they supposedly like really expensive, high demand, American-made Mosin Nagants. What food do you miss the most from Ukraine? The bread always looks tasty in videos. Yeah, well, my wife is a good cook and she bakes good bread, so that issue taken care of. There's a lot of uh, strange items which I miss. Well, I don't miss them anymore. I missed originally. Now, I live in the United States for over 20 years. Um, those cravings are gone. I craved the most while I was in Ukraine for bananas, and now I eat, so much. I eat bananas just there's no more of that. Oh my God, it was basically the event of the year when finally we have some bananas for sale in the summer. They'll be like for 1 month expensive, and my parents buy me some for my birthday. And yeah, eating banana, that was like, oh my gosh. Um, I like sweet farmer's cheese. You can buy it in some like Eastern European stores in America. There's a company from Chicago called Lifeway. They make it. It's a farmer's cheese, so it's not like cottage cheese. It's drier, but that is like a sweet version with raisins. And I know a lot of Americans say it's disgusting, so I like that a lot. I like marinated tomatoes, which you don't get here. Although periodically I go down to South Bend. There's an unmarked van shows up once a month. A guy from New York brings like Eastern European groceries. Now you cannot import them from Russia, but he got goods from Ukraine, from Belarus, maybe. I don't remember. Like those kilka behind me. That's like a tomato sauce sprouts. I like them a lot. So I don't say I really miss food, but yeah, bread was really good when it was fresh. But I said it's pretty much what my wife baked, so that was good. Let's see what else. There's a comment I don't understand. Hey Sergey, could you grease some palms to make your weight go by faster? Or probably about housing. Um, there's probably were the ways. I mean, there were people who in charge of these waiting lists, and it's probably their people. They also had their needs. Uh, a lot of times it wasn't about money because money couldn't get you much. So they'll be about exchanging favors. So, for example, if you work at the furniture store and you got a batch of furniture from Yugoslavia, which is a high demand, it also has waiting list, and you need an apartment, you might call the guy who has a apartment waiting list and say, "Hey, I got this beautiful Yugoslavian stenka." So we call them stenka. So this is like a big furniture, cabinets all along the wall of your apartment. Has doors, has a glass doors, so you display your china or your books, and then other stuff. And he's just like, "Hey, I was wondering if I can get an apartment soon. You can get this Yugoslavian furniture, or maybe there's a packet. The vouchers came to travel to Bulgaria. So yeah, people were exchanging favors, and yeah, people could get what was not about money because I said there's not a lot you could do with money. We didn't have any, luxury watches, luxury boats, and all that stuff. So money were not as much. It was exchanging favors. And I remember I realized that part. I used to date a girl back in oh when I was in my early 20s, and she during the Soviet days she worked in the central shoe warehouse in Kiev. She had a nice little apartment, one room apartment, but she got her apartment. She was originally from out of town, finished college to be in the retail, got somehow that job in the central shoe warehouse. She had nice furniture, nice TV, nice refrigerator, freezer. I never seen freezers in my life. First time I saw a freezer in her apartment. So yeah, she was all set because she had access to the best shoes, foreign shoes coming to Kiev. She can just start calling people and exchange it. So yeah, there were the ways, of course. And like when my family was stuck in the dorms, as I mentioned, we got need 15 more likes to get to 100 for 5 years. And my mom started telling me stories. She was desperately changing jobs, trying to find a job that has apartment list not super long because sharing a room with another family was a nightmare for my parents. I mean, I was too little to understand how bad the things. But then she basically went. She got a job at like a company that did construction, but still they had a long waiting list. And she went and she told me she was basically, she wrote the paperwork, заявление, explained, described the, dire family situation, the tiny room, sharing a kid is growing, like the room was so tiny that I was already too big for my baby crib, but we couldn't put any bigger bed in that tiny room. So my dad cut a hole in the part with my legs, and I would sleep with my legs sticking out of the crib. And then she said, she went to talk to the guy, to the main dude at the factory, or the guy who's in charge of the waiting list. And she said she cried, she begged, she brought the paper, and 6 months later we got an apartment. Now I'm adult and I'm extremely not skeptical. I keep on forgetting the word. I'm extremely, it's worse than skeptical, right? Like cynical. I do hope that my mom didn't have to do anything else when she went to see that guy to get that apartment, but I wouldn't be surprised because we're in such a pathetic situation. She might trade some services, and that's pretty much how the corruption would begin. Imagine you're a guy and you were in your middle age crisis. Soviet men also had middle age crisis, but they couldn't buy Corvette, you know, to pick younger chicks, but they were in charge of the waiting list. And there's a young secretary shows up who's, maybe have a kid, and she's trying to get an apartment, and you realize she will do anything to get an apartment, and you look at your chubby wife that not interested in anything anymore, and suddenly this girl is all over you, and all you need to do is just to sign the paper so she can get an apartment. So it's really easy to get corrupted, having access to those waiting lists, apartment lists, car waiting list, furniture waiting list. Oh my goodness, all those people that were trading, favors and exchanges, and yeah, it was this gray underworld that they thrived, and they had a good time. I bet you those people miss Soviet Union because they were in charge of, they were doing good. Okay. Did party members have their children baptized Orthodox secretly? Probably. I no one, of course, was tracking that. It's kind of funny because I was baptized, wasn't secretly, in maybe during Stalin days, Khrushchev, it was kind of secretly. During Brezhnev, it was kind of laid back. No one really cared. So I was baptized. I was born in 1971. And then when my brother was born in 1986, my mom didn't care at all. So over the years, she kind of moved away from religion. And my brother wasn't baptized till he was in, I think, when he started dating a girl and she turned out to be from a religious family, like they were Soviet, like intelligentsia, like white collar family. We were blue collar, but they were actually quite religious mother. So is one of the conditions that will agree for you to marry our daughter was you need to get baptized. So he got baptized in his 20s just to get through this hurdle to marry this girl. And then also they said, all our family has a college degree and you don't. So we want you to get a college degree. So he had to go and do like distant college uh, to get a degree as an engineer. So yeah, that was a high flank for my poor brother. Suddenly he has to get baptized because my mom lost interest in 86 about all that stuff. It's kind of hilarious. Okay, see. So there's interesting comments. Sergey, what you describe about Azerbaijani man that's talking about bringing shits to public to show that the night was successful and the girl was a virgin, to show blood stain and walk around the village showing the sheets, look, she was good girl. If she didn't have blood, then she'll be kicked out because she's a whore. Apparently, it's the same thing in England. Pakistani men do the same stuff. Yep, there's a long way to go to there's so many cultures that's still so like behind in this stone age. But yeah, there's a cultural thing that I was shocked that the guys have no problem having sex, whore around in their 20s, and then they want a virgin to marry. That was like, really, your standards are so high for your wife, future wife, but you have no problem having sex with other girls, so it's like double standard or something. Okay, another question. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, did the government housing get privatized? My parents were able to buy their previously assigned apartment from the city. Yeah, this is once again, if you argue with tankies about collapse of the Soviet Union allowed Soviet people or former Soviet citizens finally to take ownership of the apartments they've been renting. Even the cooperative apartments, that's the bizarre part. So I told you my family had to pay 15,000 rubles in the payments to buy a cooperative apartment, but we paid to skip the line. Officially, we didn't own apartment. Cooperative owned the apartment. It was like, I'm not sure why, but it wasn't big no-no for Soviet people to own apartments. So even if we paid 15,000 rubles, it was still cooperative that owned the apartment when I started digging into the stuff. So once again, you could sell the apartment But like you just basically you resign from the cooperative and you transfer your apartment to somebody else who could give you money and move in. We had people actually moving out like that. But technically, even our apartment, which we paid money for in the Soviet days, wasn't ours. But yeah, after collapse of the Soviet Union, it's pretty much one of the biggest benefits. With there's a caveat to it. 7 likes to go to 100. Let's do it. So they basically said, okay, same in Ukraine. I don't know about Baltic states. That's an interesting question. But Russia and Ukraine, Belarus, they basically said, okay, now you can privatize your apartments. And I believe it was for free. Like you don't have to pay anything. So if you live in an apartment for I don't know how long, you could submit papers and they will transfer, I guess, title. So now you're owner of the apartment. And so yeah, at no cost. And of course, picture you live in Moscow and suddenly, well, the prices for apartments didn't skyrocket right away, but some people got for free $1 million apartment or $500,000 apartments, because those apartments now are so expensive in Moscow. Kiev not as much. Like our apartment is a 3-room apartment. It's pretty big size, but it's on the outskirts, in the blue collar ghetto. So it's not like downtown would be outstanding. Those would be a lot of money. I think the price went as high as $60,000. I think now maybe it's $30,000, $40,000. But we're still paid in Russian rubles. But yeah, people got for free, and quite a few of them got rich. If I know a lot of people like in Moscow when finally rents went up, prices went up. A lot of these older ladies, they would move back to their village and they just rent apartment in Moscow and they will be just doing fine, doing great, because rents, like my apartment you can rent for about $500 a month in Kiev. For my mom, her pension is $100 a month right now, so not a lot. But she could rent it for 500. So if we had an extra apartment, that'll be good income. You don't have to do. You have a 5 times your pension living in the village. I bought my mom a house there for $2,000. So yeah, she would be doing just fine for $500 rent and $100 her pension. She'll be more enough money to actually she could even travel. Of course, now we have war going on. So yeah, that was so there's a big plus, right? I think one of and so we lost all our savings. Still during the Soviet time, when the economy started going and finances and the Soviet government's going really bad, they locked our savings accounts. They basically like, okay, you can't withdraw money. And that's one of the horrible part that what Soviet government did. I mean, I guess they had to, because they were afraid that the people started losing trust in the Soviet system and the Soviet banking system. We had one bank, right? So they were afraid that when the people start pulling in mass these billions and trillions of rubles, we had so much money in savings because for years, besides mentality, we need to save, save, save. There was really nothing to spend on. So they had this huge cliff, this giant pile of cash sitting in the bank, and they were afraid if people pull it out, inflation will just, and bank would probably even collapse. So they locked it up, right? So my family lost 5,000 rubles. When they unlocked finally, it was already independent Ukraine, and my parents' lifetime savings. So they saved money from they got married in 1970. So for 20 some years, 21 year, right? They managed to save 5,000 rubles in all that time. Full time, family worked full time, both parents, union members, had no car, cheap housing, and they made barely saved 5,000 rubles. 2,000 were for my wedding, and 3,000 were in savings. So there was kind of like compensation. We stole your money, but we will give you free apartment. So I would say it's fair deal. Although in my case, we still, even after collapse of Soviet Union, we still had to continue payments for our apartment. I think we had 20-year mortgage. So we got it in 19. Let's see, I went to school 78, we moved in 81. So 20 years, so it's a 2001, right? So we would pay off. I think so. So, anyways, when Ukraine became independent, and we still were doing payments, 60 rubles, but then inflation took off and like insane. We had 10,000% a year inflation. Like money were melting like snow in your hands, even faster. It was insane. It was literally when Ukraine came up with their own currency in early 1992, the rate of exchange was 60 coupons, Ukrainian karbovanets, for $1. When it was all done in 1996, so I left to America a second time in 1996. My salary, I went to America as a millionaire. I was making 20 million a month in Ukraine, and that was $75. So the rate exchange went from 60 coupons for $1 to, well, it should be going down, but to 185,000 for $1. So everyone was a millionaire in Ukraine. You couldn't go to shop for food without a million in your pocket. The coins disappeared. We had no coins for years. It was actually convenient not to have any coins. The smallest bill was like 50, I think. So I went in 1996 in the summer as a millionaire. I come back to Ukraine and they did the financial reform. So they cut a bunch of zeros. There's a technical term for it, right? When you cut a bunch of zeros, I don't remember the term. And suddenly my salary is 200 grivnas. So there's new currency called grivna, and my salary is only 200. And I actually felt kind of robbed. I used to make 20 million, and now I'm making 200. But that during that time, imagine our payment for apartment was just going next to nothing because of the inflation. And then our accountant lady, she basically sent the letters of, I don't know how, called everyone, said, they're planning to recalculate your debt. So right now, you're still in these coupons, but they're gonna do an inflation adjustment next month. You have 1 month. If you pay off your debt right now, you'll be clear. Otherwise, they're gonna recalculate calculations. Your debt gonna jump. I see if I have a grivna coin here. Let me see here for a second. Where I had it. I'm just looking at. I kept one. No, I don't. Sorry. So my mom, of course, my parents had no money. I did have some because I'm one of those. I save money. I don't waste money. I didn't have leather jacket. I didn't drink Bavaria beer. Didn't smoke Marlboros. So my mom basically like, do you have? And it was literally like $50 at that time. That was all our debt left. I'm like, yeah, sure. So I paid off our apartment with $50, and so inflation at that regards helped our family greatly. I said it's just fortunately I'm one of those guys that it's like my grandpa Sergey. I save money, and yeah, so I paid off my parents' apartment, so that was great. We took advantage of this inflation, basically destroying our debt, paying off debt cheap, and then we were clear. So it worked great. Okay, so that's about privatization of apartments. But then, okay, so check this out. Then, when you privatize apartments, suddenly you're on the hook. Uh, Everything else get privatized. So now the company that supplied you natural gas without any, we had no meters on natural gas, no meters. You can burn that gas on your kitchen 24/7. You still pay based on how many people assigned to your apartment. Can you imagine that? So now it's a private company, and they're like, it doesn't work this way. We have to pay now to Russia, who's an independent country. They want money for gas. Of course, Russia was playing games like, hey, we'll give you a better deal if you stay with us, right? So they like, okay, so your apartment building burned whatever amount of gas. Divided by apartments, each apartment has to pay us so much. And people are like, "Ah!" I can't afford to pay. And then, like, why would I pay? Like, okay, my mother, for example, she was making pies and she was using a lot of gas, right? So, like, why would my neighbor lady, who knows that my mom does that, she cooks all day to make these pies and sell? That means that my neighbor lady had to subsidize my mom's business, right? Now it's a capitalism. Capitalism. I always put the thing. So people like, we don't want to do that. We want to pay only what I use, and they're like, well, you have to buy a gas meter. So that was a huge business. Everyone started buying gas meters and installing them, like my family has. Now everyone wants to pay only what they use, and now they started saving gas. Then the water company, where they had no meters on hot water, cold water, same thing. Your place used so much water. This is per each apartment. We don't want to do that. I had a neighbor lady above me. She was taking a bath every night, long bath. Now I don't want to subsidize her hot baths every night. So everyone put in meters for water. So with this private apartment and private everything, suddenly everyone realizes how wasteful the whole Soviet housing system was because no one cared, no meters. I mean, the only meters we had was electricity. And that's the only thing I learned as a kid is you walk out of the room, lights are off. Like I wasn't, I don't want to use the word Nazi. I was hardcore teaching my kids and my wife, because in America, the like house like looks like a Christmas tree. At night, I was like, why you have lights on? I don't know. Turn them off, turn them off, turn them off, turn them off. So I finally taught all my kids and my wife, so we all keep the lights off. But yeah, that's the only thing the Soviet person would be care about is the electricity because we had a meter. And electricity was extremely expensive. When I compared prices for electricity and salaries, it's like, for California, they say, yeah, whatever. I pay about 15 cents a kilowatt here in Michigan. They'll be like paying 40. So it was pricey. So that's how but I would leave water on and I don't care, whatever. So that's what's big a learning curve for every apartment owner. And then, of course, huge expense is heating, right? And it's essential heat. Once again, no meters, and you can't really install meters. It's big boiler sends hot water through the pipes, and as it's hot water, cast iron heaters in every room, and it's based only on how many people used to live. Now they're like, well, we took us so much money to heat your apartment. There's so much money, so now I'm helping my family to pay their bills. It's actually due in 5 days. And the biggest expense is the heat in an apartment because it was poor insulated. It was quickly built, just build, and it's expensive to heat. And there's no other way to heat your apartment. It's just concrete box, right? So this is another huge expense that maybe helped to collapse of the Soviet economy. Is all these millions of apartment buildings that were poorly built, poorly heated, and people were wasting water and natural gas. So it was a giant black holes sucking the money out of the country. So yeah, people now is like, I love my apartment, but I just can't afford it, because it's just so expensive to have is all this. So people trying to insulate their apartments, put the meters and everything. Then they figure out we also used to have a central hot water supply. So you have in the winter, that's a hot water goes into your cast iron batteries, we call them battery, cast iron heaters by the windows. But then also there's a hot water supply to your kitchen and bathroom. People realized it's cheaper to install your own water heater now. So they cancel hot water supplies and they install heaters in their bathrooms and the kitchens, and they use an electricity, and it's cheaper to that way to get only cold water and heat yourself. So there's a huge shift It just tells you that it definitely is nice to have cheap housing. Absolutely. Someone has to pay for it. When an entity that used to pay for it disappears, you are in big trouble because, it's like when you drive SUV, suddenly gas becomes $10 a gallon. You realizing I cannot afford this SUV. They gave me for free, but I just can't afford it. I need cheaper car. So this is what happened to people and a lot of complaints. And I hear them paying like I told you my mom's salary, like I pay last month I paid it was like 15 or $20, all her bills for apartment, electricity, everything, $20. You say, wow, 3-room apartment, $20? Not bad at all. It goes as high as 60 in the winter, but my mom's pension is only 100. If you give $30 a month for your apartment expenses and you're making only 100, that's a lot of money. This is your, pretty much what's going on here. So for me, fortunately, not a problem. I can, help my parents. Now, my brother is in military, so he used to pay because he lived there. So and my mom can't afford this, so I had to take over. So that's it's this kind of present. You get free apartment which you can't afford, so it's pretty wild. But just I want to you understand this whole big picture. That you can do this free stuff only for so long, then you're gonna run out of money sooner or later. On the top of all the military expenses. Hey, 111 likes. How about it? We might just continue. We're having a good time. By the way, there's only the other way you can support my work is with super likes. So maybe I'll pay for my mom's apartment. Okay, so next question. Did you study philosophy described by Karl Marx in the Communist Manifesto when you were in grade school? We did have, I believe, ninth and 10th grade was, I cannot translate the name into English, was called Обществоведение. So it's like a general science, maybe. And that's why I remember we're talking about difference between socialism, capitalism, communism. We didn't really study in depth all these theories. I don't know. Soviet government probably was kind of like, yeah, we don't really want them to know everything that we do because what we do is not real socialism or we're not really striving for communism because they decided they call it developed socialism, which was never a thing in any Karl Marx books. There is a stage of developed socialism. They're pretty much like, yeah, we went to this dead corner, dead end. We're not gonna, we realize that communism is not achievable, but we don't want to say that, so we just call this developed socialism. So I'm pretty weak on the theories, and that's what tankies always get me because they can write this long describing me that I'm wrong about all the theory of socialism. Like, dude, sure, in theory, socialism is a fantastic thing. I saw it in practice, and it didn't work that good. Theory is amazing, absolutely. You just need enough ideal people, and everything will be fantastic. You don't have enough ideal people. We have there's a Russian proverb. It's called "to add a ложка дегтя в бочку меда." So if you add a spoon of tar into the barrel of honey, the honey is not good anymore. So if you don't have any lazy people, irresponsible people, people that steal, socialism could work, but it just people are not ideal and they care about themselves before they care about everyone else. It's just our human nature. And then think about this part. So I don't think we need to argue that no, people usually care about neighbors first than themselves. It's not the case. But then everyone knows that smoking is bad for you, right? Going back to smoking, right? It's not a secret. Still, how many millions of people smoke even in America? You know it's bad for you. You pay huge money. So you even don't care about yourself. Like this crap is poison. It creates cancer in your lungs, bunch of other stuff, and it's still people go for it. So they even don't care about themselves. How they would care about the whole country and the system and how they want to build socialism or communism with people that even don't care about their own health. So we're even not in a stage when people smart enough to care about themselves, you know have a healthy lifestyle, stay in shape so you don't get all these diseases, bad knees from being overweight. And then next stage, start taking care of the neighbors, and then you're ready for finally socialism. So yeah, that's a great theory, but it just, just like in sports, I learned in America, I never heard the expression in Soviet Union, playing up or playing down. Well, when you work at the factory, when everyone gets paid the same, no one gets fired for being late or not showing up or stealing, and you work, you bust your ass, you get 150 rubles. The guy next to you does half-ass work, gets 150 rubles, and the next guy down the line doesn't do shit, gets 150 rubles. How long will it take you to start working less and less? Why would you bust your butt if you'll get paid exactly the same? So I think another reason is just the whole system kind of was making you playing down, and people were just losing interest of working hard and being productive, because just other lazy people doing, not doing anything and still getting paid. Why would I want to work hard? And it's was a towards the end, and I'm once again, I'm very cynical about people, I guess. But the only way you can make people work hard is either greed or scare. Like if you're afraid for your life, and that's what Stalin did. Pretty much people would get arrested and sent to labor camps. So he used that tool to make people work hard, which is kind of like slavery. Um, and we couldn't do greed, so productivity collapsed. Once the under Khrushchev, Nikita Khrushchev canceled the law from 1940, where it was if you're late, 20 minutes late to work without excuse, you can get arrested, go to prison for between 2 to 4 months. You get arrested for being late, showing up at work, and sent to prison. That was the law introduced in 1940. And after that was actually like, no, it's okay. They try to public shame you, this and that. But that's, I think, affected greatly the productivity. And by the way, thank you for your guys' likes. We're at 123. So it looks like more people showing up. Okay, I'll try to catch up some of your questions. Would your dad ever bring home tools or material from work? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, all the time. That was another big problem. Like because of it wasn't actually to make extra money, although some people did that. If you work in some auto parts factory and the parts in short demand, and you can make more money just bringing a couple of parts a month compared with your salary. My dad was a spray painter, so yeah, he was constantly bringing paint all the time. Paint, then different solvents. Yeah, he was supplying all his buddies with paint and stuff, and yeah, that was normal thing. So you could tell where people work by what they had at home. And there was some crazy stories. Recently, I read somebody was remodeling apartment they bought, and there was this metal beam or something installed in apartment doorway, and the guy wanted to change the door or something, and he was just drilling, and all his drill bits just were overheating and breaking. It was a titanium. The whole door frame was a solid, thick titanium. So, guy worked at some military factory, and he access to titanium. So his apartment was titanium reinforced because it was, too expensive, or he couldn't get normal door jambs, or he didn't trust wood, and like he could steal titanium sheets. So yeah, that was crazy situations when people stealing stuff are worth probably, I don't know, millions, but tens of $1,000s or rubles, hundreds of thousands, but they would just sneak it out of the factory. And yeah, a friend of mine, Dima, he worked for a while at the TV parts factory. So they were making component for the color TV that provides color tuning and everything. Oh yeah, he upgraded my TV. He's like, dude, ours is way better. Your TV is kind of outdated. So he brought me a new unit, took my TV apart, replaced the parts, and yeah, he was doing good because he was Everyone was smuggling their pants and stuff. And so yeah, that was a really common. It's called nisuni, and it wasn't called stealing. Because we actually had a special term, slang nisun. So you carry out stuff out of plant, out of factories. So yeah, that was a really popular thing to do. Everyone was doing it, especially people who work like at meat processing plants, stealing sausages and food, butter. Yeah, it was really bad. And I post a lot of these caricatures. That was the government acknowledged that. That was like well known that they allowed have a caricatures comics about people stealing stuff. They show this. One was, I think I posted. So this guy, and he's walking out of the factory, the alcohol factory, like distill alcohol, and his last name Homyachenko, which is Homyak is the anyways the animal lives on the ground and he puts food in his cheeks, right? He has this giant stuffed bunch of nuts. I don't remember, but anyway, so his name is that animal, Homyachenko, and he walks out of this alcohol factory with these two giant red chicks, and this like he's really good. He can carry 2 liters of vodka or alcohol in one walk. So even that was going on. So yeah, it was not for yourself. So yeah, they would trade favors. Hey, I need some ceramic tiles. You work at the construction, and I can get you some paint. So there was a lot of trading going on, and some people, of course, sold it too. All right, so it looks like even Eastern Germany had jammers. Let's see what else we got. Did Ukrainian nationalists exist when you were alive? I'm still alive. They do exist. I guess you missed my video. And honestly, I don't know anything about Baltic states, but they had Forest Brothers. We had during Stalin time, they couldn't they were fighting with Ukrainian nationalist movement in Western Ukraine into 50s. So I think they finally prevailed like in 1952 or even later. So I had a really long video about what I remember about nationalism. And just recently I made it. Unfortunately, YouTube didn't like the topic, so they killed monetization. It's called The Resurgence of Ukrainian Nationalism in Soviet Ukraine. So this is the video I'm posting right now. And I shared all my recollection, how I remember. And I'm planning to make a video number 2, even if YouTube doesn't want to pay for it. Oops. Shoot. Anyway, so there's a coming up. Then there's the next stage. So this is the Soviet times, and then I'm going to talk about perestroika times, how it was actually a lot of positive attitude towards nationalism in Ukraine because it came along with the perestroika and changes. So we see this, more Western shows, more freedom of speech, and it's kind of came along with nationalism. So there was like this positive movement. There was a lot of hopes that general idea was that our life will improve greatly if we'll become independent country, because like Moscow sucks a lot of Kremlin sucks a lot of juices out of Ukraine, and we'll be way better off being as a separate country. Of course, that was not the case. So that my next video will be on that topic, what I remember, like basically 89, 90, 1991, when we had finally real elections in Ukraine. So there's a lot of to talk about it. Yeah, there was a lot of excitement. Definitely, there was a lot of positive attitude because all this shit didn't hit the fan yet. And I did a comparison that what Gorbachev did. He kind of opened the window a little bit, so you live in this stuffy, warm room, warm, so cozy, but it's so stuffy you can't breathe. Newspapers are boring, TV is boring, most movies are boring. Suddenly, there's this fresh air coming in, and you get all excited, but then windows got opened more and more in the cold air, and now everyone is freezing because we're not used to, we don't know how to survive in a different environment than socialism. So yeah. So yeah, hideous failed Nami. I posted the comment below, so if you missed that video, but yeah, it's a good topic. As I said, I I remember I participated the first time ever in elections. I think I was old enough. So yeah, I turned 18. So that's 1989. So that's the first time when they allowed other parties to participate, not just communists. I think it was Gorbachev who signed a decree that he canceled monopoly. It used to be you only can have Communist Party, nothing else. So picture election. You go to election booth and there's one name, and the Russian word for election like выборы. So it's like choosing. Okay, choose one. So that was so exciting because now you can choose, you study, the people go and have meetings and speeches. So all that came was this national kind of influx. So all the positive changes at that time were together with blue and yellow, like behind me right there, that flag, right? So all the changes were because of kind of felt like independence is going to give us even more and life will be even better. Any comments on the current Kursk offensive? I'm thrilled for Ukrainian army and for Ukrainian people. I have no idea why they're doing it. No clue. But definitely a huge morale boost and a huge punch in the gut to Russian propaganda and Kremlin, because once again, Ukrainians managed to show that it's just, it's a giant on a clay feet, and Russian army is somewhat good on offensive, but they cannot be doing really well on defense, especially because everyone in the Russian army gets used so much to steal that billions they spend on reinforcing the borders were all stolen. So Ukraine had no issues to punch through. Why are they doing it? I have no idea. I mean, the ultimate embarrassment for Putin would be if they will capture big enough territory in Kursk, and then they say, "Hey, how about we will have a referendum and see maybe you want to make a Kursk national People's Republic, like what Russia did in Ukraine. Hey, we'll do the same thing here now and see you go and vote. And if you want to become independent from Russia, well, good for you. So that'll be a big slap in the face because we all know how they voted in those republics. And now Ukraine can do exactly the same thing. And we will see what they will be talking now in the Russian newspapers and TV. But I honestly have no idea. There's something definitely changed. There was probably some kind of agreement between the West and the Russia that the West didn't allow Ukraine to go and attack Russian territory. There was some kind of agreement on some regards. There's something changed, and the West said, you know what, Comrade Putin, Ukrainians can do whatever they want, and Ukrainians did. They can use HIMARS, they use German tanks, Marders, they use American Bradleys. So they just basically said, okay, do whatever you need to do. So I think that's the biggest change. Why it happened, I don't know. No idea. But once they did this exchange, um, trading Russian spies and killers for Americans and the Russian opposition, they basically washed their hands and they let Ukraine do what they wanted to do. Why? I said, I have no idea. Ukrainian sources are staying quiet. Maybe they're trying to get to Kursk nuclear plant and take over that, shut it down because it supplies so much electricity to all that region. So it's going to shut down huge territory and it's going to shut down a lot of military production. Maybe that's the ultimate goal. I don't know. But I'm happy that they managed to kick the Putin's ass. That's really big slap in the face. Maybe it will help to someone in Kremlin will be brave enough to push Putin out of the window because this is really bad for Russia and the whole mighty Russia thing. Because yeah, it's the sister says I hate all the wars, but I stand with Ukraine. Same with me. I mean, I remember a long time ago they said I was never Ukrainian nationalist. what they called cosmopolite. I wish we had the world that you could just go any country you want and stay there, work. If you like, you stay. If you're not, people just go Australia, go South America. They'll be fantastic. You know, a world without borders. If you're a religious person, I don't think God wanted people to create countries, right? So they'll be fantastic. And I remember back in the day when it was the first Chechen war. So when Chechnya decided, like, yeah, we would like to be independent. We don't want to be part of Russia. We were occupied by Russians way back in the 1800s. And then, of course, Kremlin, they're like, oh, whoa, we didn't mean that. You can be independent as a part of Russia. And the war began. There was actually Ukrainian nationalists went to fight to help Chechens, and I was not happy about it because, like, are you crazy? You're gonna make Russia mad, and they will attack Ukraine. Was not Ukrainian government sending it. It was just people, volunteers, but they saw the big picture. Is basically they knew now it's Chechnya, later there'll be Ukraine, and they were totally correct. And Dudayev, who used to be Soviet general, back in 1995, they had an interview with him. I think it's 95, that he predicted that you watch, Russians will come back for Crimea, they will come back for Ukraine. It's just a question of time, and he was totally correct. But back then, everyone would be like, "You crazy." So it's just we are in the World War III. I'm absolutely convinced. We just don't know about it. Historians will call that later in 20 years that there will be the date, because as you see, it's West is slowly began to understand what danger current Russian government presents, and understand the West. They no one wants to exchange nuclear strikes for Ukraine. I was telling my Ukrainian friends because they're quite upset about America, because Ukraine used to be, after Soviet Union collapsed, Ukraine suddenly became number 3 in the world on amount of nuclear weapons. First was Russia, then United States, and I believe Ukraine was number 3 because there was so much nuclear arsenal on the Ukrainian territory. So technically, it became Ukrainian. Of course, everything was controlled out of Moscow. So for United States, number 1 priority was to take it all away and return it to Russia. Destroy it. And Ukraine was trying to, like, hey, what can we get in return? And I believe at that time was Bill Clinton. And Bill Clinton, for whatever reasons, didn't want to provide guarantees to Ukraine in exchange for giving up on the nuclear weapons. Like, there was article somewhere, and that's like caught my attention. So if you read, the agreement was signed 92, 93. There is not a single word guarantee in the English language. It's all about mutual assurances. Now, my English is not my first language or second language, but I believe in diplomatic world, there's a big difference between guarantee and assurance. If you buy a car and a guy tells you, I assure you this car is good for next 10 years, it means nothing. If he says there's a guarantee for 10 years, there is a difference, right? So if you read English language documents, it's about mutual assurances of Ukrainian borders and respect. It's totally empty document. It's basically, it's good as a toilet paper. You can wipe your ass. It has no protection for Ukraine. It's just mutual respect and assurance. Now, in Russian and Ukrainian version, in the title, and unfortunately, I don't know who did this translation, but they translated the word mutual assurances as mutual guarantees, взаимные гарантии. And that's the crap, because whoever did it on purpose, because I think Ukrainian President Kravchuk at that time, he tried to get the guarantees, so they translated to him. But I think, once again, the document that has a force for United States is the English language. There's not a single word there is a guarantee. You go to the document and it's just like, my gosh, what's this bunch of diplomatic garbage? Oh, we mutual respect. Oh, we mutually agree. Well, it's just empty promises. But Ukraine lost all the nuclear weapons, and of course, they couldn't afford it. It's not cheap to maintain nuclear weapons, and of course, the main interest of concern of America, and I understand the United States 100%, they didn't want nuclear weapons to spread. At that time, Ukrainian army people weren't paid for months, so people were stealing stuff, selling. For a lot of the equipment had a gold or silver in their electronics, so officers, soldiers were ripping up those parts, selling to feed their families. So there was a good risk that nuclear weapons could disappear and appear somewhere in Iraq, Iran, whatever, North Korea, whoever. So I understand concern, and I don't know if there will be a better way to protect Ukraine, but somehow Ukraine got this understanding that, yeah, now we're good. America will protect us because we have mutual guarantee, as our document says. Well, English language document doesn't say anything like that. So and I explained Ukrainians. First of all, I can't say you got screwed because you have a signature here. So whoever did the translation, that's the person you need to go and talk to him. I mean, your government did the best, and of course, there was a leverage. You won't get any, Western assistance. You won't become a, member of our club if you keep the weapons. We want you to give up your nuclear weapons. That was pretty much like almost ultimatum, right? So I don't know if Ukraine could do any better, but Bill Clinton, for whatever reason, he's a former lawyer. He knew the power of words. He knew if you say, I have sexual relations with that woman, he wasn't clear because in definition of sexual relations, you touch the person. So if the person touches you with her mouth and you don't touch her, technically, you don't have sexual relations. So he didn't want to put guarantees in the documents, and pretty much Ukraine was. It said, if you think about Kuwait, look at the reaction of the United States when Kuwait was attacked by Iraq. Holy crap. Did they protect democracy in Kuwait? No. And I was telling my Ukrainian friends, like, you need to understand, it's this, there's a really good YouTube channel, Bo the Fifth Column, and he constantly says that politics, it's the diplomacy, it's the poker table where everyone cheats. And we didn't play a good hand, Ukraine didn't. And, Ukraine has nothing strategical value for the United States. If we had a lot of huge oil reserves, there'll be a different conversation. The United States usually pretty sensitive about countries who had a lot of oil. Not anymore, since United States themselves got plenty of oil now with fracking. But you think Iraq, Kuwait, Libya, Syria, somewhat, they all have something in common. It's oil or natural gas, right? Ukraine has nothing of that. So it's like you need to understand, you need to be thankful. Yes, back then they didn't want to put guarantees, but you need to be thankful because they help you, even they officially by document they're not required to. I apologize, it's kind of long spiel here. But yeah, I'm telling you, a lot of Ukrainians extremely not happy, and all this thing, who will do more help, Democrats or Republicans? Like it doesn't matter. They look at their interests, and if it's in their interest, they will help you. You just need to, the only way to make American government to do something is through, it's American people we pushing. If they see you're a good guy and you're on a good side, they want to be on the good side, and sometimes not. I mean, there's quite a ugly situation in Israel and between Hamas and Israel, but look how quick United States was to help Israel. And Israel doesn't have any oil, but they have strategic location in Middle East. Once that whole war, Hamas attacked Israel, and I said Israel doing ugly things to Palestinians. There was 2 air carrier groups that came in right away, and they blocked the sky above Israel. Ukraine begged to close the skies above Ukraine to protect them from Russian planes. It didn't happen. So there's Israel, who has way more value for United States versus Ukraine. It is what it is. All right. Moose and Squirrel. Boris sent me here. I'm not sure which Boris sent you here. We got some. I represent a small percentage of dedicated female viewers. Thank you so much, Patricia. It's true, about 6%. It's a female viewership on Ushanka show. Doesn't move anywhere. It's just solid stuck there. And I appreciate every lady that decided that my stories are interesting. Okay, see, we just jumped on the bottom. Yeah, we're talking about 2 hours, so I'll be wrapping up really quick. But let me get at the bottom, see if I can. But yeah, about nuclear concerns, it is a real. And if you look what former Russian president, well, he wasn't really president, Medvedev, what he posts on his Telegram channel, he's pretty much, yeah, that's the we need. You will see Russian tanks in Berlin again, and yeah, so there's some scary rhetoric, but I don't think Putin will consider nuclear exchange. He has a young girlfriend and 3 kids, and I doubt they want him to put them in the bunker for the rest of their lives. And so, yeah, it's bad, but it's not my place to tell American government what to do. I do my best what I can, with my donations and helping Americans to understand what's going on because you know we've seen this movie before. I was listening to book on CDs, totally not related. It was a World War II Argentina. Uh, there's this guy, I forgot his name. He got several books on this topic. There's an American pilot who is a OSS spy in Argentina, and there's the German spies and all that stuff. And he kind of dropped some information, and I got curious. I Googled, and I learned about America First Committee in 1930, late 1930s, 1940s, and that pilot that flew from New York to Paris nonstop. Uh, it's not Hindenburg, something like German name, and he became then the Americans sent him to Germany to study Luftwaffe, and he became a huge fan of Germany. Goering gave the medal. So this guy, he's American hero, and he suddenly becomes pro-Nazi guy. There's a picture of him doing Nazi salute on some gathering in America, and he started pushing for America First committee. We don't want to be involved in war. It's we need to help England. It's their war. Germans are good guys, And I was like, it's the same movie again, all over again. You know, it's so depressing and scary. And then, of course, when Hitler declared war on Germany, on United States after Pearl Harbor attack, suddenly they're like, oh. So Lindbergh, thank you. Yeah, that was the whole flight. I want to watch the movie, but the fact how much he pissed off Roosevelt for basically undermining this whole effort to kind of stop the war and help Great Britain to fight off Nazis. There was such a huge push. Leave them alone. Nazis are actually good guys, and that dude fell head over heels over Germany, like how they organized, and they all, they don't like Jews, and they have great airplanes. It's like crazy. So yeah, that book made me research so much. Forgot the name, unfortunately, but it was a good book. So yeah, we're back at the same. Got a bunch of American people. They're saying it's not our war, we have nothing to do with it. And it makes you wonder, if America would get involved earlier, would you have to do the D-Day and lose what close? I don't remember how many Americans died in the European theater. several hundred thousands, right? Would that they have to go to that you have to land on the Normandy beaches to fight those Nazis that just 4 years ago you were marching. There was actually a Nazi party in Germany and in the United States. There were marches in New York City. How much has changed. If America would do the right thing back then, when Germany was still not, you know, strong, maybe there were not so many lives lost. So I don't know. It's a complicated topic, but yeah, I'm 100% positive. Well, not positive, but sure that we are in a World War III. And but right now, instead of Great Britain versus Nazis, it's Ukraine versus Putin versus Russia. Mm, and we're saying the same story playing again. It's just West slowly become to understanding that they need to help for real Ukraine. Now we have finally F-16 showing up. They allowed use weapons in the Russian territory. So but how many hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians have to die for the West to realize that Putin won't stop? If he occupies Ukraine, next will be Moldova. They already have a Moldovan Donbass there, Pridnestrovia, since '90s. After they got Moldova, Belarus already in their possession, then Baltic states. And guess what? If Putin attacks Baltic states, you have to get involved because they're part of NATO. So might as well do it now while you don't have to get involved, boots on the ground, help Ukraine more, then wait till it's no other choice but do it, because it's all over, same story all over again. It's pretty depressing, but it is what it is. All right, guys. So I talked to you for 2 hours. I got my 142 likes. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. So if I missed your questions, I apologize. I was talking more than replying to your questions. I'll go through your things through. Maybe I'll make a separate video just kind of answering your questions without putting pictures, so they'll be way quicker. Otherwise, yeah, you can always support my work with buying my books. They're available on my website, sputnikov.com or Amazon. You can buy it there too. If you buy it from Sputnikov paper copy, I make them signed. So that's cool, I guess. So anyway, thank you so much. I appreciate you following my channel. I appreciate especially my special thanks to everyone who is member of my YouTube channel. You help me greatly because YouTube doesn't pay good for the videos like mine. So almost 50% of what I earn on YouTube, it comes from my supporters, from the members. So I greatly appreciate that. So anyways, you guys have a good night. Thank you so much for joining for me tonight. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.